Here we go. Welcome to the local soccer show. Stevie P back-to-back nights back yesterday with Coast to Coast with my pal Gio talking everything Milan. Tonight we switch it up to the local soccer show, ladies and gentlemen, bringing you the ins and outs and great, fantastic guests, and another one tonight talking everything local grassroots soccer. Before we start, guys, big thank you to Evangelista Sports. They're their sponsor for local soccer show. Great establishment here in Montreal. Get all your soccer gear for the get ready for the summer season. Check them out, 6821 Boulevard Saint Laurent or at evangelistasports.com. With further ado, please, tonight we're going to hit university soccer. It's a first for the local soccer show, so I'm excited to bring on our guest. But before that, Presidente is always in master control in the background. Let's go. And the local soccer show welcome to Mr. Marc Mounicot. He is the head coach of McGill University men's soccer team. Marc, thank you very, very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for hosting me.
It's a pleasure. It's the first for the local soccer show talking university soccer. So I want to just jump right into it. And of course, yourself, tip my hat to being a coach for university soccer at McGill. And if we can just give us a little introduction on Marc, how you got into the game and how you ended up at McGill.
It's a long story. As you can hear, I'm French citizen, so I improved my English a lot over the years. I was recruited in the 80s by a semi-pro and pro club. I used to play for a club called the Supra. At that time, I was playing in third division in France, ready to sign for a second division team, and finishing my studies at the University of Bordeaux. And one of my teammates at that time showed me some kind of advertising, a Canadian club looking for players. With the kind of experience I had, I was playing for the French national team, university team, ready to jump on a flight to Japan for the World University Games. And I sent my CV at that time with a letter, and the coach and the organization called me and talked to me for a while. And a few months later, I was in Quebec playing at that level. Played there for 3 years. Then after that, they wanted to trade me to Winnipeg. I refused. I went back home.
No one wants to go to Winnipeg, Marc.
Yeah, and went back home for 6 years. Came back in '94 and trained a bit with the Impact at that time. When I came back in '94, I knew two people. I knew a guy was Andre Gagnon. He was a former teammate of mine. He was a technical director of the federation. He played for the Inter of Montreal, played for the Supra. And the other guy I knew very well was a former teammate of mine at the Supra and a famous international player for Canada. His name was Lyndon Hooper. He played close to 70 times for Canada, but actually in his family, the sister was more famous than him because Charmaine was probably one of the best soccer players in the world at that time. And Andre, I did my coaching degree in Europe, and Andre got me in the Quebec Soccer Federation, working with the provincial teams. And it appears to be that my coach, the head coach of the program I was the first year, was Pat Raimondo. He's Italian, coaching at University of Montreal, and I became his assistant coach. And at the same time, he was coaching McGill. So he asked me if I wanted to do a master. I did a master in sports psychology under with McGill, and 2 years later, after doing some work with the women's team, in '98, McGill offered me the job coaching the women's team and I coached them until 2011. Then I moved with the men's team at McGill and did a lot of coaching at the university level. Never really coached at the club level except 2 years with the W League, with the semi-pro league on the women's side in Quebec City, because a famous person in Quebec City, Alder Duarte, who was a very nice guy, was coaching also the Rougeron at university. Unfortunately, died three years ago. Was a great person, and he got me there. I coached the girls for 2 years, and I had the chance to coach at different level, provincial, national, international level, and I'm coaching the men now since a few years. It's difficult for different reasons. And because McGill is a great school, but McGill has great standards for academics, so sometimes you cannot get the players you would like to have, and the program is a little bit struggling because we're missing quality. We're trying to work on the environment, but it's some schools have better players than us, so we are trying to be competitive. But long short story, it's why I end up at McGill.
And that's amazing. And I like to get this summary of your soccer career, and then just try to track back. You mentioned Supra. uh, I vaguely, I'm gonna age myself there. I remember the Supra, but for me, I'm an impact guy. Can you tell people, how it felt coming from France, coming here to Montreal, which is not necessarily known as a soccer town, and Canada not being a soccer country? How was that transition from you, from like you're leaving home to come to Canada?
I was a total discovery. I did it more for the personal experience and the culture, discovering another country, another culture, than really, really for the football side. Obviously, I played soccer, and I realized that the soccer here was quite different, but people were trying to put soccer on the map, and I think I I had the chance to play and also being coached by very, very nice people. We You could recognize there was some quality, but that was just like a question of demographic. It was like not too many people were there. Young people were playing, but regarding the level of play, it was not as good as Europe. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we hear quite a bit, and again, for different reasons, of course. But we always hear, like I've always heard stories of the Supra where the stadium was packed, and then it was a great ambiance. Can you tell people maybe that who didn't know about the Supra? And again, I'm going this just because you experienced it, and we don't have any other references for that. But why do you think the Supra failed? Was it a part of the league, or it was just hockey is dominant in Montreal?
Uh, I think okay will always be dominant in Montreal, but I would say soccer right now was able to find his niche. Last, for example, 4 days ago, I was invited as a university coach to see a game between the CF Montreal and an all-star PLSQ team with some university players, and they were playing at the Olympic Stadium behind closed doors, something you would never imagine in the past. Where when I was playing for the Supra, training facilities were okay. The stadium was closed already at that time, but people were doing everything possible to present a team was competitive, and I think there's a huge community for soccer here. Obviously, coming from immigration, and but more and more now, Quebecers are interested in the sport, and I think it's part of a long term development. But I think some people are very important for the sport here, and obviously the people working for the Supra. After that, it was the Impact. But then, as soon as the Saputo family came into the picture, things were a little bit bigger, better. And whatever happened with the CF Montreal, people have to thank those people, because they were pioneers. We were pioneers on the field, but they were pioneers on the organization side and trying to develop the sport. And some other people also showed some great leadership in the Quebec Soccer Federation and some other at the CAC level and stuff like that. And now I would say football is getting big, and the reward of all this was the qualification of the national team with better players than they were. Like I told you, one of my best friend was Lyndon Hooper. He played in different clubs, playing in the former Premier League uh, in Birmingham. But I will say right now, never had a chance to qualify for the World Cup. Almost did it in Australia and in the late 80s, early 90s. But I think right now the sport of soccer in Canada is in good hands at different levels. The organization and some clubs are really serious, well developed. And the part of the three Canadian teams being part of the MLS also is very important, because the MLS has improved a lot. It's not the same it's not the same brand of soccer that it was like 15 years ago. Everything is getting better, stronger, and I think it's good for the sport. With obviously the next World Cup will be in Canada, Mexico, and the US, and that will bring another exposure to the sport. That's great.
Yeah, amazing to have that there. It's too bad we don't have any games here in Montreal, but we'll make some trips to Toronto and try to catch some games. You mentioned in when you were talking about your past and how you got into soccer that you did your coaching licenses in France and then came here to Quebec and in Canada. Did It's a question I love to ask because for me, like you coming from France, a soccer nation, with however they provide you that coaching license. Was it an issue here when you got here that you needed a Canadian type of license to coach, or was your license sufficient?
No, it's never sufficient. You always try to improve. You always try to raise the knowledge you have in the sport. So as soon as I came here, the good thing about the CAC and the Quebec Soccer Federation, I didn't have to start from scratch. So they gave me some equivalents. So
Yeah, the equivalency is to what you
yeah,
had. Yeah.
yeah. So it wasn't because the degree I had in France was quite high, but I didn't have to start from scratch. So, and after that, I did all the degrees possible to have the higher certification you can get in Quebec or Canada. And I did more than that, because I did some of the courses who were related to coaching, but it's a master degree of coaching. But the people were during during the course are high level coaches, but in different sports in Canada. So but the contents were quite interesting, because they touch on different things who are not sometimes related to soccer, but they try to give you a lot more insight about the coaching side.
Yeah, and just a follow up question to that. I'm curious to know, like at that level of coaching and at that level of certification or degree that you're getting, a master's, you said, do they touch a lot? Do they touch any of the psychological portion of coaching, where you're coaching the person and instead of coaching the game that you're going to be in?
Yeah, the last the master of coaching was probably one of the highest level of coaching in Canada. You touch on different things. Obviously, the psychological part of the sport, it's part of it. But you go deeper in physiology, in psychology, and the tactical part. It wasn't too developed, because you have those tactical part of soccer during your coaching license in the sport. But after that, you touch on leadership, you touch on how to approach group dynamics, all kind of things were very, very complete.
Amazing. You mentioned something too, where you said, you left France and you came here as a player to play professional soccer here in Canada. Uh, that already in itself is again something extraordinary. But what advice would you give someone who is doing the opposite, going from Canada and going to Europe? What would be, if you could go back and talk to yourself when you were younger, and it would be a reverse trip where you would be leaving Canada to go to Europe to play soccer? What would be some of the advice that you would give yourself or someone else?
My first advice will be you have to expect the worst, because uh, soccer in Europe, especially when you're a young kid trying to live your dream, it's a jungle. And I will say the first thing I will say: never, never, never give up on your education. Education is key. Education is something that will bring you somewhere in life. Sports can bring you also very, very, very great experience and great exposure, but never, never stop to be educated. That's something very important. Then after that, you need to be very talented, very strong mentally, and you need to be very lucky. And luck is maybe the most important factor, because all those kids who wants to go to Europe usually have a decent level. If they're well advised by people, if they're like going to the right place with the right environment, and they have like very, very strong qualities, they may have a chance to impress someone. But after that, you need a lot of luck. I will tell you something funny. And when I was 16 years old, I was talented. I had qualities, and I went for a tryout. That was the only tryout I did in my life, really. For a team called Auxerre, who was like probably one of the best club at that time, um, for the academies. And I left my home for 1 week. I had a tryout for 1 week, and I was happy during the day when I was training. But at night, they put me, because they were finishing to build their academy with the dorms and all things like that. But nothing was ready. So at night, they put me every night in some kind of like shelter with all kind of people there. And I was 16 years old, and I was scared every night. And at the end of the week, the big boss of the club, the coach of the premier team, the coach of the reserve, the coach of the academy, they brought me in an office, and they say, we love what you did, what you showed during the week and stuff like that. We want to offer you the chance to finish your education, and we want you to play for our reserve next year. And they said, uh, what do you think? I look at them and I say, I'm not interested. And they look at me like I was
Like you were crazy.
exactly. And I said no, because all night, every night, I was so scared about everything there, that I said it really spoiled the experience I had on the field during the day. And they called me again a few months later, trying to get me to a tournament in Germany with a reserve team. I say no, no, I don't want to do it. And as nothing with luck, it's just like sometimes, the opportunity is there, but something may go wrong. And for me, that was the case. And I never regret it. But if I can give you a name of a player who came the year after to that club, um his name was Eric Cantona, and he went to the academy there, and he became King Eric in the
King
field.
Eric.
So it's just, for him it worked, and I'm sure it worked because he was a much better soccer player than me. But for some other people, sometimes it doesn't work for different reasons. So a kid wants to go to Europe, like I said, has to be extremely talented, he has to be well advised, and he has to be lucky.
Yeah. And again, and it's also timing, right? For you, it was timing. If you would have showed up to that academy and everything was finished, the dorms were ready, and you never slept in that shelter, maybe we're having a different conversation. But again, timing
Uh,
doesn't really line up for everybody all
yeah,
the time.
that's the way it is.
Amazing story. Thank you for sharing that. I want to jump into McGill because that's where you are right now, and it's something that, again, like we said, we never had anybody to talk university soccer with us. So please feel free to share it with us. One of the questions I had, and you touched on it, right? So myself, I'm a sports junkie. I love it. I like to watch every sport. I watch a lot of American sports. I see their universities, and we're always talking about the recruitment process, and you touched on you need to keep a certain grade at McGill. You know, how is the recruitment process, and if you could elaborate on what are their standards? You said they're higher than others. Is it the same for all universities or it's different?
No, it's not the same for all universities, and the rules are different in Canada and the US, because obviously a young kid who wants to go to university mainly has the options to go or the US or Canada. The rules are different, the institutions are different, the organization are different, the resources are different, and it's the recruiting process. Usually it's quite simple. When the kid are reaching grade 10, they're starting to think, where do I will go for my future education when I finish high school? And then depending of the qualities, depending what they leave, depending of the wishes, they may say, okay, well, I may try to go to US, I may try to stay in Canada. And then after that, it's a big machine was starting for them. um, if I knew as a kid when I was 16 years old that I could go to the NCAA and spend 4 years in the US and have my education paid from A to Z by a good American school, I would have done it, because I would have done it just a year before when I did it when I was trying to play pro in Canada, because I want to discover something else. And that's my personality. But a kid usually will try to contact the school, will try to participate in different showcases. We're very, very now very famous all over North America, and he will try to be noticed. He will try to be scouted by different schools. And after that, if he's scouted by an American school, so those schools may propose him something. If he's scouted by a Canadian school, those schools may present him with the project and stuff like that. And after that, it's just like trying to show your interest, your strong interest, to a school or a few schools. And after that, you have to go on a grade 12 year to make a decision. You may do that before, because the US are open to welcome you when you're younger. When in Canada, you have to finish your deck in Quebec, or you have to finish high school in in Canada to go to Canadian university. But if you want to go to US, you can go to a prep school. So you can go to a prep school after secondary 5, when in Canada you have to finish your grade 12 normally.
Okay. And again, like the process to recruit, is it like an open tryout for the students of McGill, or these are players that you've identified and they meet the education criteria, and are they offered a scholarship, like these are like the
So
United States,
no,
or it's a different system completely?
it's a little bit different. Usually the kids we want on the team, we have seen them for 18 months, sometimes 2 years before. So, and after that, we try to keep in touch. We invite them to McGill. We ask them to send us video. I travel all over Canada, but also for the States, because McGill is an international school. So we have a lot of students coming from overseas, but also from the US, because you have to realize, as a parent in the US, studying at McGill is like studying Harvard or Princeton or Yale, but it will cost you not even half of it. So when you're parents and you have maybe 2 3 kids who will be going to college, it's very easy to add numbers. and in the US, a program usually had 9.5 full scholarship in a D1 university. Means like he has money to pay for almost 10 athletes everything for 4 years. But usually they split. Some of them have 100%, some of them 50%, some of them 60%. They can complement that with academic money because some of the kids coming to those schools may be very smart, and the school help them on the academics money, or they can just offer them a full ride. And in this case, the kid normally will not have to worry about anything for 4 years if it's good enough. But in the NCAA, you have three divisions: NCAA 1, 2, and 3. The 1 and 2 can offer scholarships, the soccer scholarship. The Division 3 cannot. They just can offer academic scholarships.
Okay.
So, but some schools are very rich. If you just go across the border close to here, you have a school called Middlebury College, who was a great private school. They have a huge ton of money. They can recruit good players, but they will just offer academic scholarships. Ivy League was compared to McGill regarding the quality of education, doesn't offer soccer scholarship, just offer academic scholarship. But once again, they have so much money they can build sports team easily, just giving academic money. And then after that, you have the strong D1 program where I will give you an example. For example, it's let's say Ohio State. You go to play Ohio State, where football and basketball are running the school. They made so much money that you can do whatever you want. And it's not only the sports team they're running, it's the entire school. And so and in the US, like I said, you can pay 100% of the cost of education for a kid. In Canada, it's different. We just have one level. It's called U Sport. We'll have 60 universities when the US have close to 1,000 schools. And in Canada, you cannot only offer a kid academic tuitions. Means like if a Quebecer wants to study at University of Laval, the cost of education for a young Quebecer is $4,000. You can offer $4,000 to a kid, but nothing else. You cannot provide food, lodging, nothing. If you do that, you don't respect the rules.
It's like tampering. Is it considered tampering?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but if you are, there is only one school who can offer more than that. It's a Christian school in Vancouver. It's called Trinity Western. And they have like special agreement with U Sport where they can pay more, but it's only that school who can do that in Canada. So if you're a young kid from Quebec wants to study at UBC, because the program there it's good academically, and also the soccer program, it will cost you $8,000 of tuition fees for the year. UBC can pay $8,000. Okay, that's the way it is. Nothing else.
But then that player and his family will have to assume the money of living there,
Yeah,
and feeding, and
yeah,
lifestyle is on them.
yeah, exactly.
Is this just because of the sheer volume of the American universities, that there's so many and they generate so much money, or it's just Canada has decided, and this might not be something that you would
I
know,
think
but
it's a little bit of both.
Hmm.
You go to Michigan, or football team is playing under 100,000
yeah,
people
Ann
every
Arbor
game.
is full. Ann Arbor is always full.
And but imagine how much money you get from this. How much money you get from this. And like I said, the sports team and the athletic department in those big schools in the US can pay for everything else in the school. They're running the show. In Canada, we don't have the same resources. So I think if we had more resources, more money, maybe the people will change the rules and it will say we can offer more and more and more. But it's not the case.
Wow. Thank you. That's amazing. I didn't know it was that much of a difference between the two countries. If we go sticking again with that, so we know to recruit, it's a process for you. So how does McGill have a relationship with the CEGEPs? As in Montreal, how's or the high schools or the youth soccer in Quebec? Like, is there a recruitment pipeline through those avenues, or
I would say at McGill we were guilty not to have a stronger network with the CEGEP because it's an international school. So a lot of our players are coming from out of province or other countries. But the French schools in Quebec, they they know to recruit well at the CEGEP level. Us, we're trying to develop that thing. We're this since 2 years. We're trying to develop a network, something we didn't have in the past, and that was our fault because the kids in Quebec are as gifted and as talented as some of the kids in the other provinces. There's no problem, and the advantage also is when they come from CEGEP to the francophone schools or to McGill, they're
okay,
older because sometimes the kids, they instead of doing 2 years of CEGEP, they may be doing three. So when they come to school, they're like 20, 21. When me, I've have my roster is 17 years old coming from the US or Canada out of province. So when you face the good, strong francophones teams in our conference, we struggle because we're too young and we don't have the experience. We don't have sometimes the talent, and good for them. They have developed a network with the CEGEP, and that's very great for them. And after that, you have the help of different organization who wants to the Quebec student athletes to stay in Quebec because they want to develop a good product. So they're receiving bursaries, and it's good for the kids. So a kid who can coming to Laval University will receive a little soccer scholarship, may complement that with another scholarship for academics. So it's called the Fondation d'Excellence du Québec. End up that the kid will not have to pay for too much to study in Quebec, and can do that for 4 or 5 years.
wow. You talked about your conference, so I want to talk about that a bit. So McGill's part of the RSEQ. So for everybody
Yes.
in French, Réseau du Sport Études du Québec, and you play in a conference division that has six other universities. Just for my knowledge, which are those universities? And again, we talked a little bit about the competition between them, but is there a good relationship between those universities? Because I understand you're playing in a league, but you guys want to make that league bigger. I'm pretty sure it wants to get bigger than six universities.
But you have seven on the men, eight on the women, because
Oh,
Bishop's University has a women's team. Bishop University cut the men's soccer program like more than almost 20 years ago.
okay.
And they try to add some teams, but it's very difficult because of geographic, and also because some smaller universities are a little bit too far from Montreal, and it creates a lot of problems regarding the demographic, but also the transportation stuff like that. The only thing I can say about our conference, and it's we actually right now at the present time, the RSEQ at the soccer level is probably the best conference in the country, and because universities are serious with their sports, and also because the Quebec talent is good, and also because some universities like Montreal, Laval, UCotier uh, are working very well, and they have developed a product that was quite interesting. McGill is a little bit behind because, again, we are more an academic school than anything else, and it will always be the case. Um, and I would like my team to be more talented, to be less a little bit academic oriented, but that's a reality I have to live with. Our student athletes are very smart, but sometimes I would like them to be a little more present on the field than in the classroom. But for them, it's everything is about the classroom.
Yeah, I can imagine that's a tough battle. Mark, if we could compare, and again, just to give people a gauge, what would be the equivalent of the RSEQ in the states?
Uh, the best school, the best program in the Quebec Conference can compete with any program from the top 15 to the top 250, because there are close to 300 programs in the D1 level. And the top 10 in the US is they're very, very, very good. But I will say we play games during preseason in the US, play D1, D2, D3, and we always compete. Always compete. We lose, we tie, we win. But the top programs, it's very difficult for you to compete because they're very athletic oriented, and it's very tough. Very tough. The speed of the game, it's not the quality, it's just the speed, and the athleticism sometimes is a little bit too much.
Okay. I want to switch. It's the local soccer show. I want to pick your brain about local soccer in Quebec. Someone coming again from France, Soccer Nation, gets to Quebec. If you've had the chance, I would like your overall impression of youth soccer in Quebec. Are they doing a good enough job developing the kids? Is it something that we're behind? Is it good preparation for university? What's your overall opinion about Quebec soccer and how things are formed here?
I started working at Quebec Soccer Federation in 95. I worked there for more than 10 years, then until 2007 or 8. And we have long discussions. There was always good coaches around at the provincial level. There was always good clubs trying to develop kids. I think the level of soccer has improved. The facilities have improved. The coaching has improved. I think the most difficult thing sometimes is and that's for me the biggest difference, it's the quality of the competition. Who do you face? When do you face them? How many quality games are you playing in a year? It's where still Quebec is a little bit behind, and it's the same thing in all over the country. So the difficulty is why the best teams from Quebec they cannot play the best team in the other provinces because of cost and resources and stuff, geography of the country. That's a little bit of difference. The quality of the competition, having your best players in Quebec playing the best players in the rest of the country, it doesn't happen enough. So it's sometimes you reach a plateau where you cannot develop a little bit more because the opposition is not there. But at the same time, you can also see that the national teams have improved their results. So it means when you give the resource, when you're able to get the best players in the country, put them together, play them against good quality opposition, you realize that the level in Canada is not bad at all. And it's after that, it's a question of demographics. Why the women's were always better than the men? It's a question of demographics, because you have more girls playing in Canada's football than many other countries in the world, and it's the same thing for the US. And when you got the numbers, when you have the qualities, the talent, the good coaching, good resources, at some point you can play at the national level and compete and win. That's what the US have done for years and years on the women's side. And now it's getting on the men's side too. It's like the quality has improved, and they're good coaches. They changed the setup of the certification. They changed the setup of the recognition and what they called ranking the clubs. The clubs are more serious. A huge difference will be the number of players in the club here compared to Europe. A good club in Europe doesn't have more than 500 people playing in the different teams.
Yeah,
and it's also all the clubs I play, and I play good clubs in Europe, you don't have more than 400, 500 people playing for the club, and usually 300 of those guys are the 6 years old to the 10 years old, half of the population of the club, all those ones. And after that, you don't have too many teams, and you can concentrate on coaching them well. and and after that, the difference with France was always an avant-garde of the entire world for what we call pré-formation, formation, academies and stuff like that. Quebec was always good because they copied many of the things were done in France regarding sport études program and stuff like that. And Quebec was always like a pioneer in the development of talent in Quebec. The problem is in Quebec and in North America in general, you have to pay for that. When in France, you don't have to pay for that.
Here we pay to play.
Exactly. And I always joke with the people. I said, how much I paid for my membership in my club. I was paying $10 per year. That's what I was paying.
Yeah, it's and I'm pretty sure we could have a whole other episode of me picking your brain about that, because of what you just said, the difference between Europe and, again, for us here, Italian background, it's a scuola calcio, it's a school that that feeds the academy. And seeing what we're doing here now, unfortunately, it's just a different culture, a different soccer culture, completely, right? And we need to pick the from the best of them, right? So if I could go back to McGill, because you said you coached the women's team and you coached the men's team, without, of course, I don't want to insult anybody, but what was the difference that you see, the difference with coaching the men and the difference between coaching the women?
The woman, you have to use a lot of psychology because
We
it
could
was
edit it out, Mark. Okay, if you're not comfortable, you tell me and we'll
no,
edit it
no,
out.
no, 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 no. It's just like there was a famous player. Mia Hamm, like, was a great, great soccer player in the U.S. She always said, "Coaches like men, but treat us like women." And it's it is very true. And there is totally different psychology approach with the girls. But I can tell you, I never had to motivate women. They're always motivated. They're always looking to improve. They're always listening. When they feel that the person in front of them is reliable, is valuable, knows his stuff, they will go anywhere for you, anywhere. And they work hard. They work extremely hard. The guys are different. They are more competitive, less social than the girls. They want to win. When you find a girl who has this winning attitude, it's gold. Because girls will be more, okay, I play for a team. I play with a bunch of girls. When the guy said, "Hey, I want to win, and I don't care what I'm playing with.
Mhm.
You don't have to be my friend. If we win, we win."
Yeah,
When the
I'm not here
girls,
to
you
make
have
friends.
always this social aspect was very, very strong, and and they were really, really nice to coach, very nice to coach.
Amazing. Good stuff. Mark, one last question. We're getting to the 45-minute mark, and I want to, I'm not calling the half on you, but I know respect for your time and to make you get some rest. A couple more questions. One would be, what's the next step after university? Have you had a player that went on to play professional? What's their next step as someone who is playing university soccer once their university career is over?
Oh, I, before that was almost nothing. They were finishing their 4 or 5 years at university, and if they love the sport, they will keep playing for a club. Okay, local club, LSEQ at that time. Now you can have PLSQ, uh, and now the new organization of soccer in Canada with the 2006 World Cup, the CPL came into the game. So I always tell the kids who are like the best players on my team, listen, if soccer is still a dream for you, because we got kids who are in academy and they go back to school because they feel they will not offer the contract, and I'll say they have to go back to the education, and it's very, very valid, and it's very, very important for me. Uh, but a kid was like one in academy, wasn't offered a contract, tried to go to Europe, didn't work, and he's going back to school. I always tell him, if soccer is still important for you, if you feel that you still want to play, stay in school, study at McGill or study at Montreal, study at Laval, but try to be the best player for me and the best player for the program, because scout are out there, CPL out there, and you may be drafted or you may be seen. And all those coaches, they contacted us and they said, do you have a player by any chance who could maybe have a tryout with us? And if the kid is good, and if the kid show the right attitude regarding the game, and if you feel his competitive edge is still very, very strong, you recommend it to them, and they still have a chance to do it. So that's a good thing for them. And for me, it's a win-win situation, because if the kid is playing extremely well for me, he may be playing extremely well somewhere else afterwards. So it's a win-win situation right now for them. So obviously you want that kind of talent, you want to develop that talent, and at some point, even if they're in school, you may try to push them to live the dream a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah. Again, sometimes the hard truth is a hard thing to deliver, but someone of your experience, I guess, is guiding them in the right direction, right? So, uh, one last question about McGill, about until we and then we'll switch over to a little bit of more humorous stuff. But with McGill and your record this year, you said something, and President in the background put it in for me, and I want you to maybe elaborate on this. Uh, you said right now we're in the process. It's not about winning, it's about improving. Can you elaborate on that message?
McGill for a long time was probably one of the best programs in the country. And then after that, some programs came up, some new teams came up in our conference, and McGill lost the edge on this. McGill hasn't won anything in 20 years, and we realized after doing a lot of thinking and that we have to change the culture, we have to change the vision, we have to change the philosophy of the program. And to start this and to develop this in something with solid base, and also trying to attract players and trying them to buy into it, it's more process oriented than results oriented. We have to build a base, we have to build a culture, and right now it's what we're trying to do. After that, obviously, that culture, we want a winning culture. Right now it's just like putting in place something was solid, something we may interest the athletes, something we may interest the athletes to buy in, something we may interest the athletes to be there and said, I want to be part of it. And after that, it will be, maybe it's a 4 years project we have with a new staff, with new ideas, new support from different people, trying to see, okay, let's go try to win more games than losing more games. And I think it's, why is it a process for me?
Amazing and good advice for everybody listening out there. It is a process, right? So it's not an easy one. Mark, I want to thank you. And before I let you go, I like to do this with all the guests. I pick your brain and I ask you some quick fire questions that you can respond one or two, right? One or two words. My first question would be, is there a manager or a coach out there that you pick his brain for ideologies, or you've molded your coaching style around?
Arsene Wenger.
Wenger. Coming from France, I'll ask you your favorite team in La Ligue.
I don't have any favorite.
No favorite.
No. My team is Arsenal. I'm sorry.
Your team is Arsenal.
Yep.
No French team.
Not really. The
Okay.
French national team for sure. Always be
Yes.
my the most important one. But the club level, it's Arsenal.
Oh, you picked a good one. They picked up quite a bit of the French national team for a couple of years there. So you were kind of cheering for your compatriots there. Uh, the team that you hate the most, the team that you despise the most. Now that you like Arsenal, if you don't say Man United, Liverpool, or Chelsea, I'm going to be a little bit shocked here. But
I don't have a team I hate.
no
I just
hatred, no
I no.
London Derby, no Tottenham. You can't like Tottenham, Mark. It's impossible you like Tottenham.
Loris is playing Tottenham. I cannot hate them.
Wow, so you're français. It's tattooed on the heart. So I understand now. The whirlwind that was the World Cup. I'm gonna ask you this, not to go into emotions. I know France versus Argentina was something tough for you to watch. What I'm gonna ask for you is, did anything break in your house after the final result?
Uh, no, because like so many people said, I didn't like Argentina this World Cup. I didn't like the attitude. I didn't like what they did during certain games. Uh, but everyone was happy that Argentina won because of Messi. So my disappointment was a little bit cut in half because of this, and also because for 70 minutes we didn't play,
Yeah.
and I don't know what happened. Maybe on one day we'll know. I don't know. It was a virus. I don't know what happened, but and then it's a question, sometimes question of luck. It's a question of, like, I if the goalkeeper doesn't make that save
Yeah.
just before the end, France is winning his second World Cup, and uh, I will be more happy, that's for
Yeah.
sure. But I was more disappointed by the loss against Portugal at the Euro in 2016 than this final. And because honestly, before the World Cup, with all the injuries we had and all the absentees were there, I don't think too many people were thinking that we could go so far. So it was it was sad at the end, but I would say not heartbreaking for me.
I want to ask you your favorite player in the past and your favorite player now.
I don't have a favorite player now, but I had a favorite player in the past, and it was Michel Platini.
And again, last question for you, Mark, and then I'll let you go. I ask this to all my guests. It's very important to me. So, of course, I'm Italian. I love pasta. I'm pretty sure you've had pasta before. There's two types of, Mark gets home like tonight after a practice, and you sit down and you're gonna have pasta tonight. You're gonna have penne. Are they the penne with the lines or the penne with no lines?
Uh, which one is the best one?
There's only one answer, Mark, for that, and that's a smart man. It's the penne with the lines. It's penne rigate. That's the only ones you should have. From this day forward, go forth and eat only penne rigate. Mark, I want to thank you so much for your time. I know it's late. I know you want to catch up on some sleep. Thank you so much for giving us your time. I really, really appreciate it. Uh, thank you. Thank you tremendously. It's been a real wealth of information.
I hope you learned something. I learned something about the penny, but I
You
will
see?
say it's. Feel free to contact me anytime, because I spoke about certain things, but I know I forgot thousand things.
Oh yeah,
So and and I see the jersey 22 at the background there. He was a great player.
yeah. Kaka is someone that touched me in terms of how he played for Milan. So of course, for me, my questions to you are very answered in just my backdrop, right? So, but in the middle, there's my favorite player of all time. That's Baggio.
Yeah, great movie.
Yeah.
Great movie with the little Buddha.
Yeah.
He was a great player.
Yeah.
Great player.
Mark, I want to thank you so much. I want to thank everybody who joined. I want to thank everybody who's going to listen to this tomorrow in your car, on your run, on your gym workout. Guys, the local soccer show, it's every 2 Thursdays. We try to bring you fantastic guests like Mark who open our eyes to different avenues of soccer that are being played in this country or another country. Please, guys, subscribe, like, comment, and please share the local podcast with your local club, and make sure that we can get the word out there, and and give a platform for guys like Mark to so that we can learn more about university soccer. So thank you, everybody. Presidente, let's wrap it up.